I do want to get into the first signing that was made earlier this week, and I did go live for it because of the breaking news and the major league news that I usually do. I went live with our buddies from Mets Central, Evan and Matt. We talked a little bit about the Griffin Canning signing and what it looked like at the outlook of the rotation. I think it shapes up a little bit more with Sean Manaea back, and we will get into that as well. One thing I will say, I definitely looked at this from face value, and it was a little bit more critical than I usually was. Is why would the Mets make a signing like this? It's because we Canning. I'm sorry. I really have apologized in advance for these awful jokes. But anyways, particularly a 4-pitch mix, let's just say that. But he signed a 1-year, $4.25 million. There is some swing and miss stuff. There's definitely more of that in more sequencing to control, less than command. Obviously, him allowing 31 home runs in 209 fly ball events across 537 batted ball events, which was the 5th highest home run fly ball rate among starting pitchers last year. His fastball was absolutely crushed last year. A 376 expected weighted on base average, quality of contact. He was acquired by the Braves in exchange for Jorge Soler in October. He was non-tendered by Atlanta in November. Got hit hard a lot last year. Seems like there is going to be a little bit more of a reinvention. For those of you who don't know, with overall fastball shape, we talked about this before, VAA, vertical approach angle, we wanted hovering around 4, less than 5. Obviously, from that certain release point, that high release point that he has, 16 inches of induced vertical break, paired up with the changeup that is apparently a hard changeup that can touch the low 90s, slider, which it seems like he gets the most swings and misses on. I definitely think that there's going to be some things that are reinvented, especially with the home run ball. Seems like he is able to throw strikes well, but he just keeps getting clobbered. Basically makes to do with the pitch shape. Quality of contact, I feel like probably could be better in this regard. Again, with the signing of Sean Manaea and the addition to Sean Manaea, I think that this probably looks like a more of a depth starter. He's getting paid like a reliever, so maybe he's looked at as a swingman in that regard. I don't know. But one thing I will do is apologize because I think there is more upside than I led on. Still not great. Still not the direction I would have gone in. Would have probably went into the Michael Lorenzen market because we all know how I feel about him. But Andrew, I'll start with you in regards to this one. I think we all knew that this was something that was a back end piece, but maybe there's something that Stearns sees here. Maybe it's something you're willing to trust with more added rotational depth coming in here this offseason. But Griffin Canning, what do you think?
Again, it's not exciting at all. Again, it's a depth move. It's fine. Again, now especially like you said with the Manaea signing, it's a lot easier to for fans to kind of digest because again they went out and got at least a guy at the top of the rotation. It's $4 million. It's a 1-year deal. Where if he's Adrian Hauser, he's DFA'd by mid-May, and it's $4 million. The Mets have paid more to send guys out of here. So again, it's depth to the rotation, and like you said, I would have preferred a Michael Lorenzen. I would have maybe preferred taking this $4 million in Montas to get a better guy, but that's not what they wanted to do. And Stearns is going with the approach of quantity instead of quality. And I guess at this point, can you build it like we talked about this morning? Can you grab enough arms to survive to the trade deadline, and then can if you need them at the deadline, get the improving and actually get the quality at the deadline, compare instead of this depth approach of let's get just 10 mid to slightly below mid arms, and can you survive with that with a good offense? That seems to be the plan. But again, we've seen Stern with his pitching lab that these knowing this pitching lab, he'll come in and throw a 3.2 ERA and be like I said, a elite swingman, or in if he's the six man rotation, and you're getting value at $4 million, and maybe he gets a 3-year deal with somebody next year because it's what this team does now. So as much as again, it's not sexy, it's definitely not good as a content creator with all these bum ass signings, but again, with Stearns in the pitching lab, you can trust it. And again, we'll see if lightning strikes twice. But again, you have to kind of give a little faith, even though again, you look at this guy, you look at the back of the baseball card, you look at the baseball savant numbers. They're really nothing sexy. But again, you at least now you've seen Stearns do it. Obviously, Milwaukee, we saw it year one. You can give him the benefit of the doubt, but again, this is not anything where it's like I'm losing my brain cells like most people on Twitter. It's just whatever. If he sucks, it's $4 million. You see him goodbye in May, and you grab the next guy. And again, like we always says, it pushes Tyler McGill down in the depth chart. That's a good thing.
That's also another thing that you can obviously look at, and we can see it from the entire pitching staff because now it's a little bit more formed up. But Frank, I'll go to you in regards to this one because Andrew just mentioned Adrian Hauser. I don't really see it as really Adrian Hauser because I think that that's more of like I don't know. It's more of like a matchup based type of thing of a guy who can get outs and eat innings. When it comes to a guy like Griffin Canning, more of this goes to the direction I feel like they went with Julio Teheran because it's like a $4 million guy on the cheap here, and it has somewhat upside. I don't think it's a hard thing to cut losses on. This type of addition to the rotation, a rotational piece. What are your thoughts on Griffin Canning coming over to the Mets?
I say, generally speaking, like when you're looking at starting pitching, just players in general, I always like trying to get the guys that are under 30. So, I mean, that was kind of the first thing that stood out to me is they said, okay, the Mets took a pitcher who is, age 28. And you feel like those guys are the ones that if you're going to do what we talk like these reclamation projects, but not necessarily high upside, but low risk kind of starting pitching signings. I think you want to go to the guys that are under 30 because they're not, fully developed. They haven't hit their peak quite yet. So you still have some time to maybe find some things you could tinker with to try to get the most out of them as a pitcher. But I feel like another thing that we always say is that like you can never have enough starting pitching in particular. And at $4 million, there's not too much risk involved. I mean, you guys talked about it last night, but this team is going to go over that $300 million threshold. I mean, that's going to happen by the time it's all said and done this offseason. So when you've already spent over $300 million, I mean, what does $4 million really matter in the grand scheme of things? And, you made another good point last night is that it feels like somehow, some way, there's always somebody hurt in the rotation by spring training or just along the way. A lot of times these things kind of shake themselves out. So you might find yourself in a situation where like, what, Griffin Canning, he doesn't really fit in, but then, someone goes down and Dig Pearson has another hip or something like that. And like, oh, well, we need someone to make some starts for now. And like Griffin Canning gets that done. But one of the other things that always happens, especially in the Northeast, you have rain doubts, you have double headers, you have guys get hurt, there's just other things that happen along the season. And we talk about just that ability to eat innings. I think is going to be very valuable. And it really, like we've been saying, allows you to do that six-man rotation. We know it's very important for Senga, and based off what happened with Manaea at the end of the year, you feel like if you could just got him to push ahead a little further, just, if Manaea could just, if his arms would give out just a little later on, you would have been in a better position. And having a six-man rotation gives you a better chance of doing that, especially considering that he has the different arm slot for a full season now. So I think overall, I'm not going to flip out about it. Getting Sean Manaea helps me feel better about Griffin Canning because if we were going into the season where it's like Montas was the 2 or Peterson was the 2, now I have some big time concerns, but it's like, okay, at least I have Senga Manaea. Like that's a decent start. And then, we'll see what happens like the Montas, Peterson, Holmes, and Canning. And I feel like if the Mets could maybe get one more starting pitching, and maybe we'll talk about that as far as being opportunistic, not just like, oh, we need another starter, just sign anybody. Like if there's a couple guys that if one of them they could land, okay, fine. And what that does is maybe that allows you to move Clay Holmes to the bullpen just in general. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, well, if Canning could be my sixth starter, then I could just leave Clay Holmes in the bullpen because, I mean, at this point, they haven't addressed the bullpen at all yet, which should not be a priority. They should kind of wait to the end, as we know, get the more important stuff done first. So that is at least another option. So, we talk about it. It gives them just a lot more flexibility. And I think the one thing that I get caught up on is like, how does Paul Blackburn fit into the scenario? Because I wasn't thrilled what I saw. I think spinal fluid leak is just never a good sign. Even if they say it's not a huge injury, it sounds bad to me. I wouldn't be paying that club option for Blackburn if it was up to me. I'd rather just kind of stick with Canning. He's younger and just kind of see where that goes. So I don't know. I like we said, there's a lot of guys that are going to be factored in. So I feel like, come spring training, a lot of guys have an opportunity. And, if one of these guys hits and we talk about the 6-man spot, then, that's what's going to happen. Can he be a long reliever? Maybe. But I feel like, with that age, you just kind of see what you could find there.
I look at two main possibilities. Obviously, I said that a guy like Canning will be making reliever type money. I think that he will be making a little bit over what Ottavino got or something from us. I think that there's two possibilities here. adjustments still need to be made because he was definitely getting tattooed like crazy, especially his fastball, giving up some of the most home runs in all of baseball as a back end rotation guy. I think that from the approach of a guy who is so deep into pitch design of Desi Drewskill, the guy from the Yankees that they brought in. I don't know if I said that name right, probably didn't, but I know that he's a big pitch design type of guy and kind of tweaking repertoires of things that can intertwine with things. If they're looking at him as a starter, I don't see any velocity coming up. I think that it's going to be based off of shape, kind of in a way that they look at it with Jose Butto. I do think that when you look at from in his secondary stuff, because of how ineffective his fastball was last year, I think that considering that he has like this secondary slider, obviously the changeup is probably going to have to be a little bit more usage if he's going to get a little bit more from his fastball, of course, when those two need to tunnel. When it comes to the slider, it seems like he gets the most whiffs at that, and it seems like it's more of a gyro type of thing. Gyro, slider, side spinning changeup usually is a call to add a cutter. So if that is the main thing that they're going to look at for him to be a possible starter, that is fine. When it comes to a reliever, considering the high arm slot that he does have, considering the swing and miss potential he does have, let's just say against, I guess, left-handed pitching compared to right-handed pitching, because we know that he can probably actually, to be honest, I don't think he can jam hitters with a sinker because the sinker isn't great at all. So he's probably going to have to go a little bit less on the contact management side. Obviously, it was not working for him last year, giving up as many home runs as he did. So I think there's probably going to be like a grip change in the fastball. I know that people have been talking about it, how he kind of adjusted a little bit as a hybrid from the Garrett Cole fastball grip, something like that. They're going to have to work around it in that regard. And they're going to have to tunnel these pitches a little bit more in order to prevent the home run ball as compared to what he's been doing his entire career. And I feel like that's probably the interchangeable type of thing with Griffin Canning, where if he's good as a starter, he's good as a starter. If he's good as a reliever, he's good as a reliever. I'm more seeing the Paul Blackburn, and this is more of just in the Sean Manaea, as we've continued to push guys down the food chain here. Paul Blackburn, considering his injury history, considering what he's going to be making in ARB3, he's going to be a free agent. I think that this is the perfect time to slide him in as the Trevor Williams. Trevor Williams, he wanted to start. He was durable enough, and he saved our ass many, many times. He was mopping us up, and then he was able to get a starting job somewhere else in Washington next year. So I think that that's the best way to kind of look at it, of possibly him being the Trevor Williams to ease him back in there. And then you also have all these other options who probably can play as a reliever or play as a starter, whether that is Clay Holmes, whether that is Griffin Canning, Tyler McGill in that discussion. Maybe they try him out as a reliever because we all know how it works out with a starter. I think that when you look at the back end of this rotation, past the Senga, Manaea, maybe Montas on a great day, I feel like you have starter ceilings and you have reliever ceilings with all of these types of pitchers, and they're going to try and figure that out, and they're going to address that, and they're going to hold it to the deadline, like Andrew said, basically surviving to the deadline and seeing what they need to do in the pitching department with any assets that they want to trade or something, because I do think that the Mets are going to be in that trade market for frontline guys at the trade deadline. If they are to go in, it's more of just a wait and see thing. I think it's basically considering the value that he got, $4 million to be a starter, reliever, swingman like that, basically getting ARB2 or ARB3 money. It's definitely a decent bargain if you can get a quality, I don't know, sub 4.5 earn run average type of pitcher out of him. It's fine. It's not crazy. Let's just all holy spirit that we are not in the Wilpon era, because Griffin Canning probably would have been our number 3 starter in that regard.